Hello, everyone. We are the Joseph team, and welcome back to Real Take Real Estate. Today, we are going to be diving into how to buy a home when you own a home, what options you have, some of the common misconceptions, and a lot of the questions and scenarios that we come across in these instances. So I am your host, Maddie Maloney.
And I'm Joe Sambear.
And I'm Sam Feda.
So just starting off, there's often times that people are looking to purchase their next home. They're ready to make the next step, upgrade, whatever situation that they run into. And then as they go along the process, they know that they need the funds from the sale of their home in order to buy that home, but they don't want to make a non-contingent offer. They want some time in between, moving and selling their first home, and they just want to know their options. So Joe, can you go through, when people run into this and kind of what are some of the options?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very common question for someone that owns a home already. Their first thought is, wait a second, I have a mortgage. Mm-hmm. How do I do this? It might not even be the down payment or the assets. Just the initial thought is, how does this work? Mm-hmm. And really, it works just like any other pre-qualification or pre-approval. We're going to look at your debt load. Mm-hmm. So can you hold that mortgage in the new mortgage? And if you can, and you have the right amount of assets and down payment available, we'll get into more depth into that. It's just like any other debt. So it's just like an auto loan. It's a much bigger loan typically, but we will look at the principal, interest, taxes, insurance on your current home and see if you can hold that with the subject property, the new property's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And if you can do that and have access to the down payment, you're really good at that point. Now, that's a struggle for some people, justifiably so, to hold that kind of debt. So they'll start thinking about, okay, I don't have all the assets or liquidable assets, or all my assets are in investments and retirement. I need somehow to get this down payment. I have a lot of equity in my current house. This is where the bridge loan comes into play. So a bridge loan is a home equity line of credit that we utilize for your house that's going to be listed. And so it's a first lien home equity line of credit. We use the word bridge, mm-hmm. which makes it sound like there's a connection between mm-hmm. the two homes, but there really isn't. It's just defining the difference of a home equity line on a house that is your primary residence to a home equity line of credit that's going to be first lien on a house that we know and want you to be listing for sale. That's the differential in what the bridge mm-hmm. is meant to mean. And so if you have a current mortgage on your current residence, we're going to pay that mortgage off with the home equity line of credit and make funds available if you have the equity, so that you can use those funds for the down payment and closing costs, escrows on the new property. So it's a tool, a short-term tool to help you accomplish your goal of purchasing without the sale. That is the purpose of the bridge loan.
And making a non-contingent offer, which is really, kind of sought after and really needed, especially in this market right now.
So it's basically like two loans. So you're taking your current mortgage, your current home, refinancing that to get additional funds out to use for down payment on your new home and your new loan. That's what the bridge loan is. So we'll loan basically up to 80% of the appraised value on your current home. So that it's basically two separate processes, two separate loans going on simultaneously, in that the first one being a refinance into a home equity line of credit to pay off the current mortgage and get you that additional cash out to use as down payment on the new home.
That's exactly right. And then the next question is, okay, I was able to use this bridge loan and I did a purchase money mortgage for the new property. Now, 30 days later, when mm-hmm. I sell my house, what happens?
So at that point in time, when you sell your current home, you don't have that original mortgage that you've had for a length of time. The only mortgage on that home is the new home equity line of credit that we did, and that gets paid off. And then you get the additional funds in your pocket at that time, minus any, transfer tax, real estate commissions, all that stuff. So how we structure it so you don't, so you come out ahead is we only loan 80% of that appraised value. So you'll likely be selling the home for much more than that new loan that we just did. So you have that cushion there to pay all the costs associated with selling the home, as well as hopefully getting a little extra in your pocket too.
And those proceeds that you're getting back at closing of the sale of your previous home, there's no ties to that. You don't have to pay it back on the new mortgage. It's free and clear. It's your money. You can decide at that point. You have a couple different options. Some people will just keep the cash, put it back in investments. Most people really want to apply that to transfer that to the new home that they purchased. And they can do it in the means of paying down their principal. That's step one if they'd like to do that. And they can take the additional step of re-amortizing or recasting their mortgage. That's very common that people would like to do that.
Yeah, and that's kind of one question we get a lot too, where we might initially structure that loan when you come to us for a bridge loan and say, you might not actually need that bridge loan if you have 5% down payment currently in your savings checking accounts, or liquidating a little bit of investments if you're comfortable with that, if it makes more sense, because there are closing costs associated with that bridge loan. So you're going to pay for that bridge loan a separate set of closing costs from the new purchase loan that you're doing. So we'll analyze that, and it might make sense to structure the new purchase with 5% down, leave your current home and mortgage as is, if your income supports both mortgage payments and we can qualify you that way. And then after that current home sells, you didn't pay $2,000, $2,500 in closing costs on that. You would get all the proceeds from that sale, and then you can do a re-amortization with us, which is, basically you can take that 5% down payment and make it a full 20% or 30% or however much you want to apply at that time. And then we can, remove any mortgage insurance at that time if you get below 80% and request it. And we can also, apply that to the new payment as well. So we can structure the new loan based off the new loan's monthly payment based off of that large lump sum that you just put down.
And there's typically a small fee to do that.
Yeah, there's about a $300 fee to do that, but then we can get you into that lower monthly payment that you'd like.
So when you go through and you re-amortize your loan, I often get asked, is this going to affect my current rate or my loan terms or anything like that? It's going to have nothing to do with the term or the rate on it. All it is going to affect is lowering that monthly payment and possibly getting rid of any mortgage insurance.
Yep. And you're going to re-amortize it based on the remaining life of the mortgage. So if it's a year in and you decide to do this, it's going to be recast or re-amortized over 29 years.
Yeah.
The remaining life of the mortgage.
Exactly.
All right. So we went into a little bit of when you need a bridge loan. And I want to hit on, there have been oftentimes that we have set up the process of using a bridge loan just as a second option, but then we end up not using it because they are then able to sell their home during the mortgage process and they no longer need it. But it's just a really great option for people to have the peace of mind that, okay, if my home doesn't sell within this time, what am I going to do? So it's okay. It's okay to get that process started for the bridge loan and not have to need it. We run into that so many times, but it's really just there for the peace of mind. Okay, so we went over when you need a bridge loan. What is a bridge loan? Sam went into a little bit of the pros and cons there. Do you have any other pros or cons, or when best to use a bridge loan versus using, maybe investment funds or anything like that? Joe, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, Sam mentioned some of them, but so the pros, you're allowed to tap into the equity. You're allowed to make interest-only payments because it is a home equity line of credit. So if you had a 15-year mortgage and your payment's pretty significant, by doing the bridge, it returns it to an interest-only feature, which sometimes reduces the payment and sometimes allows you to qualify for a larger mortgage.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So that's the pros. There are some cons that we mentioned. The cons would be the cost. Additional cost for a one-time short-term loan is not ideal. The other con is the bridge loan interest rate is based on prime plus a factor. So you don't have the fixed nature that you previously had most likely with your existing mortgage.
Exactly.
So that would be one of the cons.
Yeah, that's a good point. But it really is kind of set up as a quick short-term option to leverage that equity as cash to use as a down payment on a new home. So it does have that interest-only monthly payment at a little bit higher rate. But it's really the plan and the goal is to list that home and sell it as quickly as possible. So you might end up making, just one payment or two payments or even no payments at all if it closes shortly thereafter. But you would have to, have that monthly payment on the bridge loan as well as the new home.
And I think that's what consumers really feel comfortable about, is knowing it is a tool. You had mentioned that sometimes we've actually processed it, started it. Maybe we've gotten the appraisal for the bridge loan, but didn't have to pay the full cost because they sold it cash or whatever the case might be. But it just makes people feel comfortable knowing, like, okay, I do have the cash and down payment, but I know this is an option that's sitting there. And I think that's one of the big tools of the bridge loan, is just another option where you can feel comfortable, confident moving forward with a non-contingent offer, knowing that you have access to funds if needed.
Definitely. Okay, so that was some of the pros and cons. Now, if someone didn't want to utilize a bridge loan, but they do own a home and want to buy a new one, I think we had touched on it a little bit, some of the other options. Sam, you had mentioned, maybe not putting 20% down, but 5% down. What are some other options of maybe sources of funds, or what else could they look to utilize in these instances?
Good question. I think we've seen many times a gift. They get an acceptable gift from a family member to help them move forward with the next transaction. A lot of folks will meet with their financial advisors and find that they might have access to a 401k loan. There's some negative things with that, so you definitely need to talk to your financial advisor and get their thoughts and opinions, and does that meet your goals and objectives? But retirement funds can be sometimes a source of that as well. So I think those are the most common ones that we see. But a lot of times we talk through it. People are very interested in hearing about the bridge loan and then find that there's a different option that might be less costly, because what we are always trying to accomplish is the most effective, efficient closing without having to close multiple times. We want to do it upfront, nicely presented together. That's why the bridge loan is a nice option, because we can set you up and structure it the way we want, so you don't have to come back 4 months from now and refinance everything with additional cost.
Yeah, and that's just kind of, like you said, it's more of creating that strategy together, us as a loan officer with the buyer, to make sure we've given you your most valuable tools to get you into that new home successfully.
Definitely. And, if you're looking into these options, you really want to make sure that you're with a lender who's presenting all of them and who is explaining all the pros and cons, and maybe not pushing you into one way, but showing you all the different options and making sure that you know the different implications, making sure that you get with your tax advisor if you're planning on pulling from your 401k, but just making sure that you have those trusted people who have your back. So today we went over how to buy a home when you own a home and utilizing the bridge loan and other options that you have. We went over the pros and cons and everything to do with a bridge loan. So that is it for today's episode. We hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode, and we are Real Take Real Estate. We will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining.